Getting a real behind-the-scenes look at how this all goes down.
All right.
And it's not pretty. Just like to welcome our guest, Christopher Amato, head principal at Ocean Township Intermediate School.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this.
I am too. So we're just going to jump right in.
Let's do it.
So what was the best part about growing up in Ocean Township?
I actually really liked my neighborhood. I went to school here, but to me, like, some of the fondest memories were getting on the bus at the end of the day, and then we're figuring out, okay, whose house are we going to?
Right.
All right, okay, we're doing roller hockey down at this dead end. We'll meet you there. I'll bring my net. We're at this house for basketball. Like, those are some of my fondest memories. Even like before school would start, we would be playing like two-hand touch football in the street. We just had so many kids in the neighborhood. It was awesome. I grew up in Wanamassa. Actually, my wife's mom still lives in that same neighborhood, so it's like every time you go down, it's like going down memory lane a little bit. All right.
So what would you say was one of your greatest challenges growing up?
Well, if we're going to get real personal, one of my greatest challenges is I grew up with a learning disability. Like, people might not realize that because I sit in the seat of a principal, but
Right.
I feel like that's actually helped me in my role as an educator. But I literally had to learn and teach myself, and honestly with my mother, really sat down by my side to teach me what learning was all about. I was that student that sat in a classroom and was like, why am I here? And at that time, everything with special education and things of that nature was just really starting to come to fruition. So it was almost like I was a guinea pig, so to speak, with all the testing and stuff. So it was very challenging. Just going through school for many years. To be honest, for me, it really didn't click until maybe I was in high school.
So did they discover it when you were in high school?
Third grade.
Okay.
Third grade, I started going for the testing, and we knew that there was something there, and what it turned out to be was auditory processing, and it just, I had to learn my own learning strategies and how I learned best, so that's basically what it was. But once I found it it clicked, and then everything so I was a little bit of a late bloomer on the education side, but now I love to learn now that I know how to learn.
Right. So what happened in high school? What clicked for you in high school? Just how to make it work?
Yeah, I think that, and having a girlfriend that really pushed me, I think that really helped too. But no, in all seriousness, it just started to click. It wasn't that it came easy, but it was just now all those years of hard work. It just started making sense. I don't know how to say it other than it just started to make sense.
And I imagine you were very frustrated.
Oh, all the time.
Right.
All the time. When I was and for my older brother, everything came easy.
Right.
He was like a walking dictionary. He can spell any word. He can do anything. So it was frustrating that I would be sitting at the dining room table, doing my homework for a lot longer than him, and mom and dad are always over my shoulder, and he's done in 15 minutes. So, but to me, it made me a better person because it's I learned how to work through those challenges.
Right. Do you ever share any of these things?
All the time. I tell my students, and honestly, it's my first profession was a special education teacher.
Right.
So this is one of the reasons why I got into special education, is because I know what it feels like. I can remember, and it's something that you never forget. Right. So I talk to the students. I give them advice. There's been times where, it's something I go to their locker and I help them organize their locker, and we color code things. And I have students that stay after school with me all the time, and we work on assignments and how we can break it down into more manageable parts. And I give them any strategy that I know worked for me and see if it applies to them. And, if they grab one thing out of it, it's a success.
That's great.
It's night and day from when I was a student here. When I was a student, diversity was, you might have one student that is celebrating Hanukkah in your class. Like that was diversity. Like when I was there, when I was a student here. Now we have 19 different languages that are being spoken. We have all different religions that get celebrated. Like it's to me, it's better. It's better that we're more diverse now because that's what the real world is. We don't live in an ivory tower.
Sure.
You need to learn to work and accept all the other cultures. I actually find it very intriguing. I actually love hearing from our students now when they are going back to, visit family from where they're from, or talking to them about their holidays and things, and their cultures and their just their traditions and things like that. Like it's really cool to see what other people do rather than just what I did as a kid in Ocean Township.
Right.
When we talk about students that might have issues with their cell phones out, when I was in school, it was us writing notes and then folding them up and passing them to your friend. Like it's the same thing. We're just doing it in a different way.
Right.
Unfortunately, the cell phones get you in a little bit of trickier situations because of the photos and the messages and things like that. But other than that, I mean, it's the same old stuff, just repackaged.
Right. So you feel like kids are kids. Like
kids are kids.
Right.
Kids are kids. They really are. I mean, even I have teenagers at home, and some of the things that we did as the sayings and songs and things like that, they're repeating to me. Like they're still just children.
Right.
Yeah.
If I gave you a magic wand and you could fix one thing about the school, anything to make it better, what would be the one thing that you could do?
Man, that's a deep question. First off, which wand is it? Is it Harry Potter's wand? I'm a big Harry Potter fan.
It's a wand of choice.
It's a wand of choice. I mean, are we, like, if we were actually talking about the building and the structure itself, like, the building's old, it needs some upgrades. There are things that I want for the building. Like, I really want a performing arts center, okay? I love a performing arts center. It would resolve a lot of, overlapping of things and give our students more opportunities. Like, from a building standpoint, I think that's great. From a student or, interaction standpoint, I just wish that sometimes, and they're students, they're young, this is where they're going to make their mistakes, but I wish they would sometimes just listen to our advice that we give them. Like if you could just wave that magic wand and be like, listen, I've been here, trust me, like I've been down this road before. Like if you can just kind of give them a little tap and be like, boop, okay, yeah, oh yeah, I'm going to take your advice. Like I think that would be cool. I'll be honest, I think social media in the hands of many adults, there's many adults that don't know how to use it properly and don't understand the ramifications of their decisions. And the only thing, and we always walk a fine line too, because sometimes you have students that are so innocent that when we bring in Nikki Francis, that's who we brought in, you might be exposing them to something that they never knew that existed, right? So, but we always walk that fine line because there are students that are doing these things and are aware of these things, and you have to just keep on educating, and that's what we do. We educate, and we'll do it every single year, and we cover it in guidance counselor lessons, and we covered it in the health curriculum, and we just have to keep on drilling it home, and hopefully at some point, it clicks for them. Oftentimes it takes a traumatic experience for it to click, but there's some students that it just takes one tiny mistake and they get it.
Do you have an advantage growing up in Ocean and working in the district? Are there any disadvantages to that?
There's definitely disadvantages from being in my seat, and it's just the fact that so many people. Okay, and it could be a good thing because you know their history, you know the history of the town, you know everything, you know where people are coming from. That's great, but a lot of times, people come out of the woodworks looking for favors, right? I might have passed you once or twice in the hallway, we've never had a conversation, but all of a sudden you need a favor, and it's because we're Ocean Township folk and we're this and that, and sometimes, it's happened to me. Dropping my daughters off at dance, and I'm just accessible to people, and it's just like you're never off. It's I'm at the beach club, and you're never off. So it's so but the history part of it, knowing where we came from, knowing where where we're going, like, that's cool to see, though. I mean,
Right.
listen, the joke is that once you're an Ocean, you're always an Ocean. Everybody's
Right.
related to each other. Everybody knows each other. It's cool because it's a good community.
Okay, so you move on up to head principal. People would say you had, I'm sure you heard this a lot, you have big shoes to fill, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's your first year as principal. How many months into it were smacked with COVID?
Well, before COVID, we had the Red Plague. Do you remember the Red Plague?
That was, yeah.
Yeah, we definitely had a lot of challenges coming
Right.
up, and yes, to just go back to where you're saying, big shoes to fill. Mr. Costula was my building principal when I
Right.
was a student here, so
Right.
it was cool to follow in his footsteps, but big shoes to fill, and I wasn't hired to do the job exactly the way he did, but there are so many things that he taught me
Sure.
along the way, and there were so many traditions that we've had along the way that I wanted to maintain. But yeah, you're right. I think it was about a year and a half into it, we had COVID, and
Right.
that changed the landscape for a long time. We're still feeling the effects of it.
What would you say was your biggest challenge during COVID?
Just being able to shut it off.
Right.
Like it was we were on 24/7. And honestly, thankfully, I have a very supportive family. Like, they got it. My daughters are like so proud that I'm a principal. My wife was great, but like, we were on 24/7.
Right.
Like, there was no time. Like, even like, there's an app on our cell phones that we put on that attaches to my office. So there was like, I was getting office calls late at night, and this was all of the administration,
Right.
all the way up, and we were just on nonstop. And the other thing, it became education wasn't education anymore. Education became a political point.
Sure.
And I didn't get into education to be a politician.
Mm-hmm.
I that part like really shook me, because we weren't made, like, the battles, and everybody had strong opinions, and I still understand why people had strong opinions, but it just wasn't about education for a while. That was really tight. I feel like our upper administration, Dr. Stefankiewicz, Ms. Weldon, I feel like they really guided us, and they
Right.
did a great job of taking a stance. I mean, I can talk about my own family, where it's really my in-laws, my sister-in-law and brother-in-law live in Maryland. We were back to school 4 days a week, and their children were still remote, so we were very, I felt like, aggressive in tackling it, and I felt like we did a really good job of getting our students back to normalcy as quickly as possible. And I thought Ocean Township did a good job of reading the trends and reading the data and making safe decisions for everybody. I really did. But yes, would our opinion be asked? Our opinion would be asked, but at the end of the day, that was kudos to Dr. Stefankiewicz, because that's a time of education that I don't know I'd want to be the top dog.
We talked about it and when he was a guest in this very seat.
The biggest takeaways is that we learned that we're all resilient, that we can all continue to learn, we can all continue to grow. I remember sitting in a team meeting the week of March 13th, before it all shut down. And we were like, all right, we're just going to put some stuff on, Google Classroom. And like, even putting things on Google Classroom was like a little, like, a stretch for people. And then it was like, we don't have to do any video, right? No video. No video. We're just going to do. And the fact that, like, we worked outside of our comfort zone really quickly. I feel like so many people grew actually at their profession and learned different ways to do things, because we couldn't work in our comfort zone anymore.
Right.
So to me, that was a great thing that kind of came out of it, is that maybe it was a reminder that we got to push ourselves a little bit more.
Sure.
Every once in a while to work outside of our comfort zone.
Right. What about this job surprised you? What hadn't you expected? Like, people come to you, close the door, and they bring you some heavy stuff.
Yeah, it does. But you know what? That part, I always feel like has been a strength of mine. Like I felt like I always feel like I'm a good listener. I feel like I'm always there for people. I think the staff realizes that. I mean, there's staff that, at every faculty meeting that's open the year, I put my cell phone number up there for everybody, so they know that I'm accessible to them at any point. And when our staff is going through something tough, I'm going through something tough with them.
Right.
And when they're going through something great, like celebrating, I don't know, perhaps like Educator of the Year, like something great, then I'm celebrating that with them. So, so like I felt like that was never an area. I love problem solving.
Right.
I love doing that.
Yeah,
that portion
I
of
feel
it.
like you have an open door policy, and I also felt that way with, Larry Costula, as well as my first principal, he was not James Simonelli.
Yeah,
Coach Sim was not only my principal, like yourself, I had the same experience. Coach Sim was my principal when I was in high school, and then he was my first principal and my first job. And the one, I think, thing that all three of you have in common, and I feel incredibly lucky to have had three awesome principals, is that you're all coaches, right? And I feel like that coach mentality, it really works with, administration.
I love
have you
it.
noticed that?
I was the one thing that I missed the most of being a teacher is
Right.
that when I coached the girls soccer team here, those were some of my fondest days. Like
Yeah.
just being out there and getting to know the players on a different level than just a teacher,
Yeah.
and joking around about, with them about things. I still coach now, but just little league for my daughters.
Sure.
So I love the coaching aspect to it. And yes, I agree. Like you learn so many great qualities, just being an athlete and being a coach and all
Right.
these things. So I think you learn so many qualities on how to, tackle tough situations. Like you're faced with tough situations all the time, and this is how we're gonna problem solve it. This is how we're gonna work the problem, and let's move on to the next. So yeah, I do think that it's
Right.
important to be a coach.
What do you think makes, a strong leader?
Open-mindedness. You have to be open-minded to do this job. You need to be. Listen, there's going to be some cliche things. You need to be organized.
Yeah.
Okay. You got to have a thick skin. Okay. You need to be a listener. The one thing, and we have somebody in the audience that's listening, but I at one point I was the fine and performing arts supervisor. Other than being able to trace and do stick figures, I didn't know much going into
Sure.
it, but I trusted the people that were in
Right.
front of me, and I listened to them, and I trust those people. So I took what they had into consideration, and then we made it work. So I love brainstorming. I love brainstorming sessions when
Right.
people have ideas. Let's go back and forth. So I just think you just have to be open-minded. You have to be willing to learn and grow yourself, and because you got to model the model. If I'm closed-minded and I'm not willing to learn something new or take on, we had Genesis this year come out. I spent my entire summer trying to learn it from a teacher's perspective. If I didn't do that, how would that roll out have gone?
Right.
So I have to model the model.
Sure.
That's a Jim Simonelli saying right there, model the model. I actually think in this profession, complacency kills. Okay? I think you
Right.
have to always be willing to evolve.
Right.
And
agree.
because there are trends that are changing. We're facing the newest trend is the app out there, ChatGPT.
Right.
If we don't evolve to it,
Right.
we're gonna be behind. So there's always things that are gonna evolve and change the way we look at things, and we have to be open-minded to changing. If we continue to do things the way that we've always done it,
Right.
we're gonna fall behind.
So what advice do you have for 8th graders?
So my advice is be open to all the things that are going to be available at the high school, okay, or at any high school, but we hope the majority of the students go to our high school. Get involved in as many clubs and activities as possible. It's the same advice I gave to my daughter. My daughter's a freshman right now at Monmouth Regional, and I told her, I said, I'm not going to be happy unless you're in at least 3 or 4 things,
Right.
okay? Have pride in your school community. Learn what it's like to give back. It's going to be rewarding. Try new things. If you don't like it, see it through, and then once you're done, you can try something differently.
Right.
But I always tell the students to mind their choices. I'm a strong believer that, I'm at the end of this podcast, I'm going to walk out your door and I'm going to make either a left or a right, and one of those is going to change the trajectory of my day. If I go left, maybe I run into some students that aren't supposed to be there. If I go right, maybe there's nothing and it's a clear path back to my classroom. So just think about your choices before you act.
Right.
This is why I tell the students, this is the place to learn and make mistakes. This is the time to do it.
Right.
Like, explore, make the mistakes. I'd rather you make the mistakes here in school rather than making the mistakes out there where it can have greater effects. Like, that's what learning's all about. We learn from our mistakes. You learn and grow from your mistakes. So try things out. I'm just a person just like everybody else. But I am also those things that I just said to you that I give my advice to my students. I'm a person that, I love the saying, although sometimes it's misconstrued, I'm a jack of all trades and a master of none.
Right.
That used to be a really good saying and people have kind of twisted it. But like, I love the fact that I dabble in everything. I'm a firefighter in Oakhurst Fire Department. I'm not really active anymore. Alexis and the girls really don't like that, so I'm not really active anymore, but I did that for a long time. I was a MMA fighter for a while. I like to go hiking. I put myself out there in vulnerable situations, and I see what happens, and I'm willing to take those risks. So, but I feel like I give that advice to my students because that's the path that I took, and I feel like it was eye-opening for me.
So I didn't know you were an MMA fighter.
Yeah.
How'd that go?
It was good. It was great. I was in the best shape of my life.
When did you do this?
I did it actually. So this is kind of ironic. So I played soccer, and I still play soccer, but I played soccer in college, and I finished my career with a bunch of knee injuries. Okay, and thankfully I never had to have any surgeries. But so when I was sitting around, just kind of like not being able to do anything, I was like, oh, try out MMA. Like, you would think that would probably be worse, but it was the fact that in soccer I couldn't cut back and forth on the field anymore. The pain was just too much. But the MMA was just great. I started out with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then kind of found like a passion for Muay Thai because it's a lot of kicking. And I'm a soccer player, so it like kind of came easy to me to kick things. And then it just also just kind of felt good sometimes to get your frustration out and get a good workout in. And it was good. So I never really competed in any like tournaments or events. It was just more about sparring and just being with my buddies and working
So
out.
what point was this? This was
college. I was teaching. I was teaching.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember coming in. Things kind of changed. Like, I took one to the rib one time, and it really hurt me.
Right.
And then in like a week later, I came to school with like a black eye, and Castula gave me like a look. He's like, "What's going on?" So I started to back off a little bit there because at that point, I'm in front of students, and I don't need to be coming to school with black eyes and looking banged up. So it just I dialed it back a little bit, and at that point, it just became more about the fitness part of it and the challenge of that, and just pushing my body that way.
What would you like your Spartan legacy to be?
Listen, I think I'm part of a living Spartan legacy. I am a Spartan. I was a Spartan, and it's about giving back to your community. I take great pride in what I do, not only for this community, but in Tinton Falls. I think that's the legacy. Everybody brings value to the table, and what are you doing to make your community better?